Eli tugged at the man's sleeve with his tiny fingers. The diner went silent. "Sir, will you marry my mom?" His voice was soft, honest, just loud enough for every table around to hear. Maya froze mid-step, her tray of coffee mugs trembling in her hands. A few customers gasped. One older woman clutched her chest. Someone's spoon clinked loudly against a saucer. And the man, a stranger in a wrinkled hoodie, quietly sipping his coffee at table 7 for the past 3 days, looked up, stunned. His blue eyes widened, blinking as if reality had just sucker-punched him in the chest. He didn't laugh. He didn't say no. He just stared at the little boy like his entire past had suddenly come crashing into the present. And that's when everything began to change. But to understand why a stranger would one day walk into a tiny roadside cafe, why a little boy would see something in him no one else could, and why a single mother would find herself facing a truth that would shake the foundation of her world, we have to go back. Because love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it walks in quietly, sits in the corner, and waits for you to notice. If stories like this touch your soul, you're in the right place. Tap subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. Because every week, we bring you stories that remind us of love, kindness, and the twist of fate. Stay with us. This one is unforgettable. Maya Thompson had long stopped believing in fairy tales. She was 28, a single mom, and the manager of Sunny Spoon Cafe, a warm little diner tucked just off Route 9, the kind of place where truckers came for bottomless coffee and seniors came to feel less lonely. Her life was simple and exhausting. She woke up before dawn, packed Eli's school lunch, braided his curly hair while half asleep, and walked him 2 blocks to the elementary school before heading straight to work. No time for spa days. No time for dates. Certainly no time for men. Eli was her whole world. And every extra dollar she earned went into his school shoes, field trip forms, or saving up for a better apartment than the 1 bedroom they shared above the laundromat. Customers at the cafe adored her. She had the kind of laugh that warmed the room, even when her eyes said she was running on fumes. She always wore her name tag a little crooked and carried a stack of menus in one hand and a dream in the other. Her dream: to one day own this cafe. Not to expand. Not to franchise. Just to own it. Because it was the one place where she felt in control, where her voice mattered, where her regulars called her sunshine, even on her stormiest days. But lately, the cafe hadn't been doing well. A fast food chain had opened down the road, slashing their lunch crowd in half. The old espresso machine coughed more than it brewed. And her boss, Jerry, the grumpy, money-pinching owner, had been making noise about selling the place if things didn't pick up by the holidays. Maya tried to keep smiling. She wore her best lipstick. She offered discounts to the elderly. She even started baking muffins at home and selling them under the counter just to bring in a few more dollars. Still, some nights, after Eli had fallen asleep on the couch waiting for her, she'd sit on their thin mattress, stare at the cracked ceiling, and wonder, is this it? Is this all my life will be? She'd gotten so good at pushing through pain that she'd forgotten what it was like to hope. That is, until he walked in. A stranger. Rain-soaked. Hooded. Quiet. And everything began to shift. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. The kind where the cafe's windows fogged with steam and the bell above the door barely chimed over the sound of thunder. Maya was wiping down the counter when she first saw him. He walked in slowly, like someone who hadn't been inside a warm building in days. His clothes were damp, darkened by the storm, and his hood hung low, shadowing his face. No one noticed him at first. Not the teenagers scrolling on their phones by the window. Not the elderly couple sharing soup in the corner. But Maya did. Maybe it was the way he hesitated by the door, unsure whether he belonged. Or maybe it was the subtle limp in his left leg, the one he tried to hide. Whatever it was, her heart tugged. She motioned to a table near the kitchen. "You okay?" she asked softly, handing him a napkin to dry his hands. He nodded but said nothing. Maya poured him a cup of hot coffee without being asked and placed it gently on the table. "It's on the house," she whispered. "Rain's got no manners today." The man lifted his head slightly, just enough for her to catch a glimpse of his eyes. Deep, thoughtful, and tired. like he had lived 1,000 lifetimes in 1 week. Still, he said nothing. He sat there for nearly an hour, hands wrapped around the mug, staring out the window as the rain poured harder. Some customers glanced at him curiously. Jerry, the owner, even grunted, "We're not a shelter," under his breath as he walked past. But Maya kept serving him. She slipped a slice of pie onto his table when no one was looking, refilled his coffee, checked on him like he was a regular. Because something in her gut told her, this man wasn't who he appeared to be. Later, as she cleared a nearby table, she noticed a scrap of paper tucked under his mug. It was a drawing, a child's sketch, a stick figure boy holding hands with what looked like a mom. The words scribbled in crayon underneath, "I miss you, Daddy." Maya's heart clenched. This man was grieving, or running, or maybe both. But she didn't pry. She just placed a blanket from the back room over the back of his chair and whispered, "Stay as long as you need." And for the first time since he walked in, he spoke. His voice was low, almost broken. "Thank you." She didn't ask his name, and he didn't give it. But from that moment on, something shifted between them. Eli had always been the type to strike up conversations with anyone, even strangers with sad eyes. That day, Maya had set him up with his crayons and apple juice near the window, hoping to distract him while she managed the cafe. But Eli had other plans. He noticed the man sitting alone, staring into his coffee, the blanket still draped around his shoulders. "Mommy," he whispered, tugging on her apron. "Why's that man so sad?" Maya hesitated. "Maybe he's just tired, baby." Eli nodded slowly, then turned back to his table. But 5 minutes later, he was standing beside the man with his drawing book clutched in his tiny hands. "You can borrow my crayons if you want," Eli said shyly. "Drawing makes me happy when I miss Daddy." The man blinked. Slowly, almost like he wasn't sure what to say. Eli climbed into the seat across from him, despite Maya's soft, "Eli, don't bother him," from across the room. But the man just let him. Eli took out a fresh page and started drawing again. This time, he made 3 stick figures. One short, one taller, one even taller. He turned it around and pointed. "This is me. This is Mommy. And that's you." The man swallowed hard. Eli's eyes sparkled. "Mommy says we're okay on our own. But I think she gets lonely. You seem nice." Maya rushed over, her face pink. "I'm so sorry." "Eli, sweetie, come back to your seat." But before she could finish, Eli dropped the bombshell. "Will you marry my mommy?" The entire cafe went silent. Maya froze. The man stared at Eli, stunned. Then, for the first time, a slow, unexpected smile curved across his face. Maya's cheeks turned crimson. "Eli!" The man chuckled, a deep, warm sound that seemed to surprise even him. "That's a big question." Eli shrugged. "Well, someone has to. She works too much." Maya apologized over and over, but the man just waved it off, still smiling. Smart kid. That day, he stayed longer than usual. Didn't speak much, but he listened to Eli's stories about school, about dinosaurs, about how his mommy makes the best pancakes when she's not too tired. And Maya noticed something in him soften. By the time he left, Eli had gifted him the drawing, the one with all 3 of them. The man folded it carefully and slipped it into his coat pocket like it was something sacred. He didn't say goodbye, but he looked back one last time before stepping out into the rain. And in that glance, Maya knew she'd never forget him. Not because of what he said, but because of how, for a fleeting moment, it felt like someone truly saw her. 2 weeks passed. The stranger never came back. At first, Maya pretended it didn't matter. After all, he was just a man passing through, not part of their story. But Eli kept asking, "Do you think he didn't like my drawing? Maybe he found someone else to marry. Do you think he has a kid too?" Each question chipped away at her carefully built wall. Then one stormy Thursday evening, just as she was locking up, headlights flashed outside the cafe. A sleek black car, not the kind you'd normally see in their tiny town, pulled up. Maya's first thought, wrong address. Then the door opened, and out stepped the man. But he wasn't wrapped in a blanket this time. He was in a tailored suit, polished shoes, and carried the kind of air you only see in men who own more than they can count. His posture, his aura, everything had shifted. Her breath caught. He walked in like he had every right to be there. "Maya," he said, like her name wasn't just a sound but a memory. She stood frozen. "You remembered?" He pulled something from his coat pocket. It was crumpled slightly, like it had been opened and closed a dozen times. Eli's drawing. "I never forgot," he said quietly. "That day, I needed more than shelter. I needed reminding that people still care, without knowing who you are." She blinked, confused. "Who are you?" He hesitated, then offered his hand. "Alexander Ward," he said, "CEO of Ward Group. And I owe you more than I can say." The name hit her like a train. Ward Group, the luxury conglomerate. Hotels, tech, fashion. He was that Alexander Ward? Maya's voice cracked. "But you were barefoot, cold, alone." He nodded. "I was escaping. The press, the pressure, my own life. I needed to disappear. And you let me exist like a real person." She shook her head. "I didn't do anything. You gave me a meal when I couldn't pay. You let me sleep in safety. Your son gave me hope." He paused. "People usually want something from me. But you too. You gave freely." Tears welled in her eyes. Alexander glanced around the empty cafe. "I want to buy this place." Her breath hitched. "What?" "I want to keep it exactly as it is. Cozy, warm, real. But I want you to run it. With full backing. Better equipment. A team. Time for Eli. Time for you." Maya was speechless. "You believed in kindness," he added. "Now let me believe in you." That night, as rain pelted the windows and thunder cracked outside, Maya stood in the center of her cafe, wondering if life had just rewritten itself. All because she said yes to a stranger with sad eyes. And no name. The next few months unfolded like a dream Maya never knew she was allowed to have. The cafe didn't change much in appearance. The red and white checkered curtains still hung in the window, the chalkboard menu still held Eli's messy doodles at the corner. But everything behind the scenes transformed. New ovens, fresh countertops, a proper coffee grinder that didn't groan like an old man every morning. Alexander, or Mr. Ward, as the town awkwardly called him, kept his promise. He didn't turn the cafe into some posh franchise with gold trim and overpriced croissants. He let it breathe. Let it stay Maya's cafe. And that was what made it magical. He visited often, not as a boss, but as a friend. Sometimes he'd bring Eli puzzles, or sneak in chocolate chip cookies even when Maya said no sugar before lunch. Other times, he'd just sit and sip tea like a regular customer. Quiet, watching, smiling at something he never thought he'd find. Peace. Eli adored him. And Maya tried not to. But how do you stop your heart from reacting when someone shows up? Not with money or promises, but presence. He fixed the plumbing when it broke, helped her install shelves, read bedtime stories when she came home too tired to lift her arms. He was just there. And yet, Maya remained cautious. Too many people had disappeared from her life. Her ex, her parents, even old friends when her life fell apart. She didn't want to depend on someone who might vanish again. But one evening, she walked into the cafe and saw something that shattered her walls. Eli was asleep on the couch in the corner. His head rested on Alexander's lap, a half-read storybook still open. Alexander looked down at him with a tenderness Maya had never seen on anyone's face, not even her own when she held Eli as a baby. That was the moment she realized. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't charity. This man had chosen them. One morning, as they prepped cinnamon rolls together, Maya looked at him and said, "You don't have to stay." He turned to her gently. "I want to stay." She smiled. "This isn't your world." He wiped flour off her cheek. "Maybe I want a new world." A week later, in the middle of the cafe during the afternoon lull, Eli stood on a chair and shouted, "Can you just marry my mom already?" Maya nearly dropped a tray of mugs. Alexander burst into laughter, but when he looked at her, his eyes were soft. Serious. "I've been waiting for the right time," he whispered. "But maybe your son knows better." He knelt down. No grand speeches, no diamond rings. Just him. "Will you let me be part of your family?" She said yes with tears in her eyes and cinnamon on her nose. Years later, when people asked her how she met her husband, Maya would laugh and say, "He was barefoot and broke. Or at least, that's what I thought." But in truth, she hadn't just found a partner. She found someone who reminded her that kindness isn't small. That giving, even when you have nothing, might just bring back everything. And that love, real love, doesn't always arrive in a suit. Sometimes, it knocks on your cafe door, cold and shivering, and changes your life forever. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to show that kindness still matters. Subscribe for more stories that remind us how love finds us in the most unexpected places. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever helped someone and had that act come back to you in a surprising way? We'd love to hear your story. Because sometimes, the smallest act of compassion can rewrite someone's life, or your own. Don't miss the next one. See you in the next story.